Hello, this lecture recap will be on primary production. Your presenters are Jack, Kiyomi, and Evelyn. Primary production is the autotrophic production of new organic biomass into an ecosystem. Essentially, this is done through the process of photosynthesis, where carbon dioxide and water, with the help of light energy, are chemically transformed into glucose and oxygen. Essentially, this takes inorganic molecules whose energy cannot be used by organisms and turns them into organic molecules whose energy can be used for all life processes. Primary productivity can be measured as the uptake of carbon or the output of oxygen. The gross primary production is the total measurement of primary productivity. The net primary production is the available amount of production after producers have undergone their own cellular respiration.
Trophic cascades are top-down or bottom-up effects that alter the abundance, biomass, or productivity of a population or community. Top-down effects are those caused by consumers, and bottom-up effects are those that have direct effects on primary producers, such as nutrients and temperature. Trophic cascades extend between multiple trophic levels and therefore involve indirect interactions between species. One example is how primary producers produce inorganic nutrients through photosynthesis, and these nutrients get remineralized into organic material by microbes, then consumed and incorporated into organisms on higher trophic levels. The first nutrient cycle we will discuss is the carbon cycle. Carbon is a vital part of organic molecules and also vital atmospheric gases such as carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon enters the atmosphere as carbon dioxide from respiration and combustion. CO2 is then absorbed by producers to make carbohydrates through photosynthesis. Animals feed on the plants, thus passing the carbon compounds along the food chain. Most of the carbon these animals consume, however, is exhaled as carbon dioxide. The animals and plants then eventually die, and the dead organisms are eaten by decomposers in the ground. The carbon that was in their bodies is then returned to the atmosphere as CO2, or it becomes available as fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, soils, and carbonate rock are all examples of where carbon can be sequestered, and therefore take a very long time to return to space.
The phosphorus cycle does not display a large atmospheric pool. Instead, it is typically in minerals and sediments. Most phosphorus is in rock deposit. River input and dust storms weather rock and release phosphorus back into the environment. Humans use phosphorus from mining in fertilizers, and this disrupts the natural phosphorus cycle.
The nitrogen cycle. Most of the nitrogen in the nitrogen cycle is in the atmosphere in the form of nitrogen gas. It takes nitrogen fixation to convert nitrogen into a usable form. This happens via nitrogen-fixing bacteria, lightning, or in post-industrial times, synthetic fixation by humans. Once in a usable form, nitrogen undergoes nitrification via nitrifying bacteria. It undergoes a series of chemical changes until it reaches NO3-. Once in the form of NO3-, it can be taken up by plant roots in a process called assimilation. Plants are then eaten by animals, and nitrogen is assimilated into animals. Organic matter containing nitrogen then undergoes ammonification, when decomposers convert nitrogen from organic matter into ammonia. Ammonia undergoes nitrification again. Nitrogen can cycle through these stages repeatedly, but it will only return to the atmosphere through denitrification via denitrifying bacteria, which turn nitrogen back into a gaseous form. Anthropogenic effects. Since the Industrial Revolution, humans have increased our carbon input into the atmosphere by more than 30% by burning fossil fuels. We have also cut down forests, some of the largest carbon sinks, which will decrease the amount of carbon sequestered. Increase in input and decrease in output have thrown the cycle off balance. Modern agriculture requires synthetic fertilizers made by synthesizing large amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus. Phosphorus limits NPP, which influences plant growth and can induce anthropogenic growth in unprepared ecosystems that are affected by agricultural runoff. 100 million metric tons of nitrogen are produced per year, and we have more than doubled our nitrogen input into terrestrial and marine ecosystems.